Scene start. In Taw. Elena's private office, night. The air in Elena Volkov's private office was always thick with a scent I couldn't quite place. Old money, expensive leather, and something else, something sharp and floral that clung to the heavy velvet curtains. I was supposed to be replacing a faulty antique lamp, a delicate operation that required focus, but my eyes kept straying. She was standing by the tall, arched window, her back to me, silhouetted against the inky black of the autumn night. The city hummed distantly, a soft counterpoint to the ticking of an unseen grandfather clock. Her hair, the color of rich mahogany, was usually pulled back in a severe, elegant bun, but tonight a few rebellious tendrils had escaped, curling gently around her neck. She wore a dark silk dress that draped like liquid shadow, hinting at curves beneath. She was talking on the phone, her voice low and firm, but something in the slump of her shoulders, the way she absently traced a pattern on the cold glass, told a different story, a story I shouldn't be privy to. My name is Leo Maxwell, 22 years old, fresh off the farm in Willow Creek, now a junior estate manager at the Volkov Legacy, a place that felt more like a museum than a workplace. I was here to fix things, to keep the old gears turning, not to observe. But there was something about Elena Volkov that drew your eye, whether you want it to or not. She was a force of nature, a widow who'd inherited an empire and didn't just preserve it, she made it bloom. She was 45, 23 years my senior, and my boss. My very intimidating, very beautiful boss. And tonight, I saw a flicker of something raw in her, something that made my chest tighten. I felt like I was witnessing a private moment, a crack in the polished facade, and I couldn't tear my gaze away. My hands, usually steady, fungled with the lamp wire. She ended her call, her voice dropping to a near whisper as she said goodbye. She turned slowly, her eyes, the color of deep sea, narrowed slightly as they found me. My breath hitched. I hadn't realized how long I'd been staring. She walked towards me, her steps silent on the thick Persian rug, the silk of her dress rustling faintly, a sound like dried leaves in an autumn wind. Elena, whispering, her voice a low, dangerous purr that vibrated through the quiet room. "Another peek, and you're fired." The words, soft as they were, hit me like a physical blow. My stomach dropped. Fired, just like that. Back to Willow Creek, back to the dust and the quiet, away from this place, away from her. But even as the fear coiled in my gut, another feeling, bolder, more reckless, surged. It was the feeling of standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at something beautiful and terrifying. My heart hammered against my ribs. Her eyes, usually so guarded, held a flicker of something I couldn't decipher. Anger, yes, but something else too. Curiosity? Challenge? I swallowed, the taste of copper in my mouth. My voice barely above a whisper, raw with a strange mix of fear and defiance. It might be worth it, to be honest. Her expression didn't change for a beat, her gaze unflinching. The air crackled between us, thick and heavy. I could feel the heat radiating from her, even across the small distance. My stupid small-town mouth had just sealed my fate, I thought. I was going to be out on the street by morning, all because I couldn't keep my eyes to myself. But then, a ghost of a smile, so faint it might have been a trick of the low light, touched the corner of her lips. It was gone almost instantly, replaced by her usual composed mask. But I'd seen it, and it ignited a spark deep inside me that I hadn't known existed. This wasn't just about a job anymore. This was about something much, much bigger. The silence stretched, pregnant with unspoken words, with the weight of that shared moment. I wondered if she would fire me then, right there, or if she'd say something else, something I couldn't possibly predict. My heart was a drum in my chest, waiting for the beat to drop. But she didn't say anything. She just turned, walked back to her desk, and sat down, picking up a pen as if the moment had never happened, leaving me there, trembling slightly, the faulty lamp still in my hand, my fate hanging in the balance. Scene end. Scene start. In T, Volkov Legacy Estate, day. Leo, VO. The Volkov Legacy wasn't just a corporate campus. It was a testament to ambition and history. Sprawling across acres of manicured gardens and ancient woodlands, the estate's main building, a grand Victorian manor, had been meticulously restored and modernized by Elena and her late husband, Viktor Volkov. It housed high-tech offices, conference rooms, and exclusive guest suites, but also preserved the old-world charm of a stately home. My job, junior estate manager, put me everywhere and nowhere. I oversaw the groundskeepers, maintained the infrastructure, handled anything from a leaky faucet in a guest suite to coordinating the catering for a major corporate event. It was a job I'd fought for, leaving behind the dusty fields of Willow Creek, where my family had farmed for generations. I wanted more than sun-baked earth and predictable horizons. I wanted the hum of the city, the sharp lines of modern ambition, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to prove I was more than just a farm boy. The morning after the Peak incident was a blur of nervous energy. I expected a pink slip on my desk or a terse email from HR, but nothing came. Elena, as always, was a whirlwind. Controlled motion, gliding through the main hall with an air that demanded respect and brooked no argument. Her usual attire of impeccably tailored suits, usually charcoal or navy, made her seem even more formidable. Today, it was a sharp gray, the fabric catching the light as she moved. She greeted important clients, gave precise instructions to department heads, her voice clear and commanding. She passed me once in the main corridor, her gaze brushing over me without lingering, like I was just another piece of the estate's furniture. It was both a relief and a strange kind of disappointment. Had it meant nothing to her? Had I imagined the intensity in her eyes, the almost smile? Leo VO. I kept telling myself it was a fantasy, a dangerous game born of too many long nights alone and the intoxicating proximity to power. She was Elena Volkov, the woman who could charm international investors in one breath and dissect a multi-million-dollar budget in the next. I was Leo Maxwell, the kid who still instinctively checked the weather app for rain before deciding what to wear, just like back on the farm. There was no universe where we existed. Yet the memory of her whispered warning and my own reckless reply played on a loop in my mind. Later that afternoon, a notification flashed on my work tablet. It was an internal message, direct from Elena Volkov's office. Not HR, not my direct supervisor, her. My heart gave a frantic thump against my ribs. This was it, the axe. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the open button. My palms were sweating. I took a deep breath, picturing the worn-out tractor back home, the smell of fresh-turned earth, anything to ground myself. I tapped it open. It was short, concise, and to the point. Leo, please come to my office, 5 p.m. Not Mr. Maxwell, not could you please attend to, just Leo, and 5 p.m. No niceties, no explanation. My stomach twisted. 5 o'clock felt like an eternity away, and simultaneously, like it was already here. Scene end. Scene start. Intern, Elena's private office, evening. The clock on the wall of Elena's office chimed softly, indicating 5 minutes past 5. I'd arrived precisely at 5, but was made to wait. My hands were clasped behind my back, my posture rigid as I stood before her massive mahogany desk. The evening light filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the room. She was seated, pen in hand, studying a document, completely ignoring me. The air was thick with the scent I now associated solely with her. I could feel the prickle of sweat on my neck. My simple work shirt felt too rough, my boots too clunky in this elegant space. I felt like a bug under a magnifying glass, waiting for the sun to concentrate its rays and burn me to nothing. Every muscle of my body was tensed. I kept my gaze fixed on a spot just above her head, refusing to meet her eyes, terrified of what I might see there, or what I might betray with my own. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes, cool and assessing, swept over me. There was no anger, no impatience, just that unnerving, intelligent scrutiny.
"You're early, Maxwell. My calendar says I had you for 5:05.
My voice a little too high, a little too strained. My apologies, Miss Volkov. I thought it was 5.
A slight arch of an eyebrow, a hint of something unreadable in her expression. Punctual, a rare quality these days. Take a seat, Leo.
She gestured to one of the plush leather chairs opposite her desk. The use of my first name in this professional setting felt like a subtle shift, a crack in the carefully constructed facade. I sat, sinking slightly into the soft leather, feeling even more out of place. Leo, not Maxwell, not Mr. Maxwell. My heart did another strange flip. She was playing a game, and I had no idea what the rules were.
She leaned back slightly in her chair, her gaze unwavering. "About last night, what exactly were you doing in my office after hours, Leo? The lamp was not scheduled for repair until this morning."
My mind raced, searching for a believable lie. But something in her directness made me want to be honest, or at least as honest as I dared. I was testing it. The flicker was intermittent. I wanted to ensure it was truly fixed before morning, so as not to disrupt your work. It was an initiative.
A small, almost imperceptible nod. Initiative. I appreciate that. But you are also observing.
The word hung in the air, heavy with accusation, and something else, something I couldn't quite name. My face flushed hot. I apologize, Miss Volkov. It was unprofessional. I lost my focus.
Her voice softened, just a fraction, but it was enough to make me shiver.
Did you? And what exactly did you observe, Leo, other than a faulty lamp? This was it, the moment of truth. I could deny it, lie, pretend I saw nothing but wires and brass. Or I could lean into it. The reckless part of me, the part that had spoken up last night, urged me on. Leo, meeting her gaze for the first time, my voice steadier now, surprisingly so. I observed a woman under immense pressure, and a glimpse of vulnerability. It was unexpected. Her eyes widened just for a split second before regaining their composure. She studied me, a long, piercing look that felt like she was seeing into my very soul.
Vulnerability, you say? A dangerous thing to see in someone, especially a boss.
Quietly. Perhaps. Or perhaps it's simply human.
She leaned forward then, resting her forearms on the desk. Her expression
serious. The perfume, that intoxicating mix, seemed to intensify. Let me be clear, Leo. This position, this company, it's not just a job to me. It's my lifeblood. It was my late husband's dream, and I've dedicated every waking moment since he passed to making it flourish. There's no room for distraction, for misplaced emotions. Do you understand? Leo, nodding slowly, my throat tight. I understand. I value my position here, Miss Volkov. I understand the importance of discretion. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips again, this time lingering a moment longer. Good, because while your initiative was perhaps misplaced, your observation was not entirely inaccurate. I do carry a heavy burden, and sometimes even I forget to maintain the facade. She paused, her gaze drifting towards the window, where the last vestiges of twilight were fading into night. Her voice dropped, becoming softer, more intimate. "Elena, my husband, Victor, he was the heart of this place, the visionary. When he died, suddenly, 5 years ago, everyone expected me to crumble, to sell, to retreat into my grief. But I couldn't. This was our life's work. So I built walls. I became what they needed me to be: strong, unwavering, cold. It was easier than feeling, easier than dealing with the whispers, the pity, the vulture-like gleam in some people's eyes. Leo, V.O. Her voice, usually so clipped and authoritative, was laced with a raw edge of sorrow I hadn't expected. It was a confession, laid bare for me, just me. My heart ached for her, for the burden she carried, for the strength she had to constantly project. I wanted to reach out, to offer comfort, but I knew I couldn't. Not yet. Elena, turning her gaze back to me, her eyes clouded with memory. Every decision, every sacrifice, it's been for this, for his legacy, for the hundreds of people who depend on this company. My personal life became secondary. It had to. But sometimes the weight of it all, it threatens to break through. She picked up a small, ornate letter opener, turning it over and over in her elegant fingers. The movement was almost hypnotic. I believe in competence, Leo, in dedication, and I see that in you. Your work ethic is impressive. Your attention to detail, even to a faulty lamp, is noted. And your discretion, I hope, will prove to be equally so. It will, Miss Volkov. You have my word. A faint sigh escaped her, a sound of weary relief. She pushed a small engraved card across the desk towards me. Good. Then perhaps you might consider joining me for dinner this Saturday evening, 7 o'clock, here at the estate, in the small dining room, just the two of us. I find myself craving a different kind of conversation, and perhaps a different kind of perspective. No work talk, no titles, just Elena and Leo. My gaze fell to the card. It was thick, creamy parchment, embossed with the Volkov family crest. An invitation, from her, to dinner. My stomach fluttered with a nervous excitement that bordered on fear. This was a step into unknown territory, dangerous territory. But the memory of her vulnerability, the soft curve of her lips as she almost smiled, the sound of her using my first name, Elena, it was all too much to resist. Picking up the card, feeling the smooth paper beneath my fingers, I would be honored, Elena. She nodded, a faint, genuine smile gracing her lips this time. It lit up her face, making her look younger, softer. It was a devastating smile.
Good. Now you're dismissed, Leo. I have a late conference call. And the lamp, I trust, is fully functional?
Standing, a new spring in my step, a thrill running through me. Absolutely, Elena. Fully functional. I turned to leave, feeling the weight of her gaze on my back. The dangerous game had just begun. Scene end. Scene start. Interior, estate, small dining room, night. Leo V.O. Saturday evening arrived with a nervous tremor that vibrated through me all day. I spent hours trying to decide what to wear. My small-town wardrobe consisted mostly of practical work clothes or my one slightly too formal suit that I usually only wore to weddings or funerals. I settled on a dark navy blazer I'd bought impulsively in the city, a crisp white shirt, and dark trousers. It still felt like dressing up for the prom, not a private dinner with my powerful, enigmatic boss. The small dining room was usually reserved for intimate board meetings or visiting dignitaries. It was elegant, with dark wood paneling, a grand fireplace, and a long, polished table set for just two. Candles flickered, casting a warm, inviting glow, and the aroma of something delicious wafted from the kitchen. Elena was already there when I arrived, standing by the fireplace, a glass of wine in her hand. She wore a deep emerald green dress, the color making her eyes sparkle. It was less formal than her usual office attire, yet exuded an effortless sophistication. Her hair was down, styled in soft waves that framed her face, making her look softer, more approachable. But the sharp intelligence in her eyes was still very much present.
Leo, you're precisely on time. That's a habit I could grow to appreciate.
My voice a little husky. Elena, you look stunning. A genuine smile touched her lips, and for a moment the guardedness seemed to recede entirely. It was a smile that reached her eyes, crinkling the corners, making her look incredibly beautiful.
Thank you, Leo. And you clean up rather well for a farm boy.
The teasing note in her voice was new, unexpected, and it sent a jolt of pleasure through me. She gestured to the table.
Please sit. I've taken the liberty of ordering for us. I hope you're not averse.
To a good coq au vin. Leo, sitting, feeling a little overwhelmed by the intimacy of the setting. Anything you choose, Elena. I'm sure will be perfect. We talked through dinner. Not about work, as she'd promised. We talked about my childhood in Willow Creek, the challenges of farming, the quiet beauty of open fields. I found myself opening up to her in a way I hadn't to anyone else since moving to the city. She listened intently, her gaze never leaving mine, asking thoughtful questions. And then, slowly, she began to talk about herself, about Victor. Her voice softer now, tinged with a delicate sadness. Victor, he was everything. My partner in life, in ambition, in dreams. We met at university, young, idealistic, full of grand plans. This estate, it was his ancestral home, but it was decaying. We transformed it together, piece by piece, brick by brick. Every corner holds a memory. Every garden path, a shared laugh. She paused, swirling the wine in her glass, her eyes distant. His death, it was sudden, a massive heart attack. One moment, he was there, vibrant, full of life, planning the next phase of the Volkov legacy. The next, he was gone, just like that. The world just stopped. And then it started again, brutally, without him. I watched her, my heart heavy with empathy. The pain was still raw, even after 5 years. It was etched into her features, visible in the way her hand trembled ever so slightly as she lifted her glass. This wasn't the cold, calculating CEO. This was a woman who had loved deeply and lost everything. A wry, self-deprecating smile played on her lips. Everyone expected me to fall apart, and I did, for a time, in private. But when I stepped out, I had to be strong. For his employees, for his family, for his legacy. I worked tirelessly. I learned everything, every detail, every nuance of this business. I slept 4 hours a night, if I was lucky. I sacrificed friendships, hobbies, any semblance of a personal life. Because if I didn't, if I showed weakness, it would all crumble. And that I couldn't bear. Quietly. That's an incredible sacrifice, Elena. Her gaze met mine, suddenly intense. Was it worth it? Sometimes I wonder. I've built an empire, Leo. Increased profits, expanded our reach, earned accolades. But I've done it alone, and it's a lonely place to be. You look at me and you see power, don't you? But sometimes I just feel tired. So very tired. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing lightly against mine. A startling, electric touch that made my skin tingle. It was fleeting, barely there, but it spoke volumes. Tell me about your dreams, Leo. Beyond Willow Creek, beyond this estate. What do you truly want? Her touch had scrambled my thoughts, but I managed to gather them. I want to build something, to be part of something meaningful, to create, and to not just survive, but to truly live, to experience everything this big, bustling world has to offer.
Not just the work, but the passion, the connection. Her eyes held mine, a silent understanding passing between us. The candles flickered, the coq au vin grew cold, but neither of us noticed. The air was charged, thick with unspoken desires, with the fragile hope of something new blooming in the quiet space between us. Scene end. N.T. Volkov Legacy Estate, day. Leo, V.O. After that dinner, something irrevocably shifted. The walls between us, so formidable, had not exactly come crashing down, but a door had definitely opened. We maintained our professional distance during the day, our interactions clipped and businesslike, but there was an undercurrent, a shared secret that hummed beneath the surface. Our late-night conversations became more frequent, always initiated by her, a quiet summons to her office to discuss a project or a report. But the discussions invariably veered into the personal, into shared vulnerabilities and aspirations. The touch on my hand at dinner became more frequent, more lingering. A brush of her arm when she passed me in a quiet corridor, a hand resting on my shoulder as she explained a garden layout. Each touch was a spark, setting off a quiet fire within me. The estate was a hive of activity, and unfortunately, not everyone was as oblivious as I sometimes wished they were. Mr. Thorne, head of operations, was a man whose ambition was as sharp as his tailored suits. He was in his late 50s, with a perpetually dissatisfied expression and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. He'd worked alongside Victor for years, and by all accounts, believed he should have been the one to step into the leadership role after Victor's death. He saw me, a junior manager barely out of my teens, as an irritant, a nuisance, a misplaced cog in his well-oiled machine, and he had a particular way of making that known. Mr. Thorne, approaching me in the main hall, a sneer playing on his lips, his voice dripping with condescension. "Maxwell, still puttering about in the rose garden, are we? Making sure the peonies are properly aligned for her ladyship. Such vital work." Leo, keeping my voice even, refusing to rise to his bait. "Just ensuring the estate maintains its standards, Mr. Thorne. As always." He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Standards, indeed. And I suppose those standards extend to evening visits to the executive floor, do they, after everyone else has gone home? I've noticed your dedication. Very commendable, very personal." My blood ran cold. He knew, or at least he suspected. The implication hung in the air, a poisoned arrow. My stomach tightened. I forced myself to remain outwardly calm. "Leo, I occasionally work late, Mr. Thorne, as required by my duties, and sometimes Ms. Volkov requests my input on matters that can only be discussed in person." His eyes, cold and sharp, flickered with amusement. "Of course, in person, and in person. Highly crucial, I'm sure. Just be careful, Maxwell. This is a very old, very traditional establishment. Some things, some liaisons, are not looked upon favorably, especially when they involve a certain disparity in position and age." He patted my shoulder, a gesture that felt more like a warning than a friendly touch, and walked away, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding. His words were like a siren, blaring danger. He was watching. He was gathering information. Leo, V.O. I felt a chill despite the warmth of the spring day. Mr. Thorne was a viper. He was looking for any weakness, any crack in Alina's armor, and I was, unwittingly, providing it. The stakes were higher than I'd ever imagined. Not just my job, but Elena's reputation, her control over the empire she'd built. Later that week, I was in the administrative office picking up some paperwork. Clara, a bright-eyed young woman who worked as an assistant in the marketing department, looked up from her computer. She was a few years older than me, but we shared a friendly camaraderie. Her desk was always cluttered with colorful post-it notes and half-finished coffee cups. "Hey, Leo, got a minute?"
walking over to her desk, trying to appear nonchalant. "Sure, Clara, what's up?" She lowered her voice, leaning in conspiratorially, her eyes darting around the office. "Look, I don't want to pry, but be careful with Mr. Thorne. He's been asking around. About you, about your schedule, and about Miss Volkov." My heart jumped into my throat. What kind of questions? Frowning, her brow furrowed with concern. Just odd ones, like if I ever see you coming or going from the executive wing late at night, or if Miss Volkov has been unusually informal with you. He's always been ambitious, but lately he's like a hawk. He's got this weird gleam in his eye, like he's onto something big. He even tried to get me to discreetly check Miss Volkov's private calendar for any unscheduled meetings. I told him no, of course. Leo V.O. Clara's words confirmed my worst fears. Thorne wasn't just suspicious, he was actively digging, and he was trying to use others to do his dirty work. "Clara," she reached out, touching my arm reassuringly. "Just be careful, Leo. He's not a nice man. And Miss Volkov, she's a force, but even she has enemies. You're good at your job. Don't let him mess with that, or with anything else." Her implication hung in the air, unspoken but clear. She knew, or suspected too. My secret wasn't so secret anymore. The walls I thought we were building around us were crumbling, piece by fragile piece. A faint, grateful smile. "Thanks, Clara. I appreciate the warning. I will be." I left her desk, my mind racing. Thorne was a threat, a real, tangible threat, and I had to tell Elena. But how and when? Every conversation, every look, every stolen touch now felt laden with immense risk. Scene end. Scene start. In T, Elena's private residence, night. Leo, V.O. The whispers started subtly. A prolonged glance from a colleague in the dining hall. A strained silence when I entered a room. The way some of the older staff, the ones who had been here for decades, would avoid my gaze. I felt like a spotlight was constantly on me, even when I was alone. Elena, ever the master of composure, seemed oblivious, or perhaps simply chose to ignore it. During the day, we maintained a professional distance that bordered on icy. We spoke only when necessary, in clipped tones, about work-related matters. It was our shield, our cover. But the nights were different. Our late-night encounters became our sanctuary, our forbidden world. Sometimes it was in her private study, the room where our dangerous dance had begun. Other times it was her personal residence within the estate, a sprawling, elegant apartment on the top floor, accessible only through a discreet private elevator. I'd use the service stairs or park my car in a secluded spot, creeping through moonlit gardens like a thief in the night. The risk was intoxicating, the danger adding a sharp, thrilling edge to every meeting. One such night, I found myself in her expansive living room, bathed in the soft glow of a dozen lamps. She had dismissed her housekeeper and cook hours ago. The city lights twinkled in the distance, a comforting backdrop to our clandestine intimacy. She was curled on a plush velvet sofa, a cashmere throw draped over her. I sat on the floor, close to her, my head resting against the armrest, her fingers idly tracing patterns through my hair. Elena, her voice a low murmur, softer than I'd ever heard it. "Sometimes, Leo, when I'm here with you, I feel like myself again. Not Miss Volkov, not the CEO, not Victor's widow. Just Elena. It's a relief, a profound, terrifying relief." Leo. Her touch was light, feather-soft, sending shivers down my spine. The scent of her perfume, a richer, more intimate version than the one in her office, enveloped me. I could feel the warmth of her hand through my hair, a comforting weight. Leo, looking up at her, my heart aching with tenderness. "You are Elena, to me. Always." She smiled,
a genuine, luminous smile that melted away years of grief and responsibility. She leaned down, her lips brushing against my forehead, then my temple, then lingering at the corner of my mouth. It was a slow, deliberate dance, a delicious torture of anticipation. You make me feel seen, truly seen, something I haven't felt in so long, not since Victor. Leo. My hand reached up, cupping her cheek, feeling the silkiness of her skin. My thumb traced the line of her jaw. My eyes searched hers, filled with an emotion
I couldn't hide. And you, Elena, you make me feel like I'm finally living, not just existing. Her eyes, a deep, fathomless green, held a mixture of longing and fear. She closed the small distance between us, her lips finding mine. It was a kiss that was slow and deep, tasting of wine and longing, a culmination of weeks of stolen glances, whispered conversations, and electric touches. Her fingers tightened in my hair, pulling me closer. My arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her down, so she was half lying against me, her body warm and pliant. Her breath hitched as our mouths parted, a soft sigh escaping her. She looked at me, her eyes shining. This is madness, Leo. Utter, beautiful madness. Nuzzling into the crook of her neck, inhaling her scent. Then let's be mad, Elena. She pulled back slightly, her gaze serious now. Thorn. He's watching, isn't he? Clara warned you. I nodded, feeling the sudden chill of reality seep into our bubble of intimacy. He is. He's digging, asking questions. He sees something. He wants to expose it, for his own gain. Her jaw tightened, her expression hardening, the CEO returning for a moment. I suspected as much. He's always been ambitious. But this is a new low. He wants my position, or at least to undermine my authority. What do? A flicker of defiance in her eyes. We continue, but with more caution, and we prepare. Because when he strikes, he will do so with precision, and without mercy. The unspoken we settled between us, solidifying our bond, acknowledging the shared danger. It was no longer just me taking a risk. It was both of us, together. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a naive farm boy out of his depth. I felt like a man, standing shoulder to shoulder with the woman I was falling for, ready to face whatever came next. But the crisis came sooner and more publicly than we anticipated. Scene end. Scene start. XT Volkov Legacy Estate Grounds, Day. Leo VO. The annual Volkov Legacy Garden Party was more than just a social event. It was a cornerstone of the community. Dignitaries, local business owners, key investors, and even families from Willow Creek, my hometown, were invited. It was a showcase of the estate, a demonstration of Elena's continued success and influence, and it was precisely the stage Mr. Thorne chose for his dirty work. I was overseeing the catering setup, my hands busy but my mind on Elena, who was across the lawn, greeting a group of city council members, looking magnificent in a flowing cream-colored dress. She had an aura of effortless grace, a true queen in her domain. I allowed myself a brief, private moment of admiration, a tiny smile playing on my lips. Then my eyes caught Mr. Thorne's. He was standing near the edge of the rose garden, his back to me, but his posture radiating an ominous stillness. He was talking to a small group of people, a couple of board members, and, to my horror, a prominent local journalist known for his sensationalist articles. Mr. Thorne had a discreet folder in his hand. My blood ran cold. Clara, rushing up to me, her face pale, her eyes wide with alarm.
Leo, you need to see this.
Leo, turning to her, my heart pounding. What is it? She shoved her phone into my hand. On the screen was a photo, a blurry, grainy photo, clearly taken from a distance, but unmistakable. It was me, late at night, in a secluded part of the estate's gardens, kissing Elena.
Her head was tilted back, my arms around her waist, her hands in my hair. The image was dark, poorly lit, but the intimacy, the forbidden nature of the embrace was shockingly clear. Thorne just showed it to the journalist and to Mr. Henderson and Mrs. Davies from the board. He's got copies. He's telling everyone. He's saying you're compromising Miss Volkov, that you're a liability, that she's making inappropriate decisions because of you. Leo, my breath caught in my throat. The world seemed to tilt. The buzzing of the crowd, the laughter, the music, it all faded into a dull roar. The photo felt like a punch to the gut, exposed, completely and utterly exposed. Oh, God. I looked up across the lawn. Elena was still talking, still smiling, unaware. My heart ached for her. This was my fault. My reckless worth it had come back to haunt us both. I felt a wave of nausea. I had to get to her. I had to warn her. But it was too late. As if on cue, a hush fell over the crowd near the rose garden. The journalist, a tall man with an aggressive demeanor, was now pointing in Elena's direction, his voice carrying across the hushed lawn. Journalist, loudly, clearly, deliberately. Miss Volkov, can you confirm the allegations being made about you and your junior estate manager, Mr. Maxwell? About a scandalous affair that is compromising your leadership and the integrity of the Volkov legacy? All eyes turned to Elena. Her smile faltered, her head snapping towards the journalist, then to Thorne, who stood smirking, the folder still in his hand, a look of triumph on his face. The whispers started then, like a wildfire, spreading rapidly through the elegant crowd. Heads turned, pointing fingers, gasps of shock. I saw some of my family from Willow Creek among the guests. Their faces were a mixture of confusion and mortification. My face burned. Leo, VO. This was the crisis. It was public, humiliating, and utterly devastating. I felt the full weight of my small-town background crashing down on me. I was a disgrace. I had dragged Elena, this magnificent woman, into my mess. I wanted to run, to hide, to disappear. Elena, however, did not flinch. Her eyes, which had initially widened in shock, now narrowed, blazing with a cold fury I had never witnessed before. She took a deep breath, composed herself instantly, and walked towards the journalist, her steps firm, her head held high. Her elegance never wavered, even in the face of such public scrutiny and venom. Elena. Her voice, though initially quiet, gained power with every word, cutting through the murmuring crowd, commanding attention. Mr. Davies, I believe you are referring to this man, Mr. Leo Maxwell? She looked at me, her gaze meeting mine. In her eyes there was no shame, no regret, only a fierce, unwavering determination. She extended her hand towards me, a silent summons. Leo. My legs felt like lead, but I walked towards her, towards the inevitable storm, towards the woman who held my heart, utterly captivated by her courage. I reached her side, feeling the collective gaze of hundreds of eyes on us. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for hers, intertwining our fingers. Her grip was strong, reassuring. Elena, facing the journalist, then sweeping her gaze over the board members, over Thorne, her voice ringing with clear, unwavering authority. Let me be absolutely clear. Yes, Mr. Maxwell and I are in a relationship. A personal relationship that has developed between two consenting adults, and I will not deny it. Not here, not now, not ever. A gasp went through the crowd. Thorne's triumphant smirk faltered, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. The journalist, equally shocked by her directness, fumbled for words. But, Miss Volkov, this is highly inappropriate. Your position, the company's image, a junior employee? Her voice rose, resonating with a power that silenced all dissent. She tightened her grip on my hand, pulling me slightly closer to her side. Inappropriate? Let me tell you what is truly inappropriate, Mr. Davies. It is inappropriate to believe that a woman, particularly one who has dedicated her life to building and sustaining an empire, is somehow incapable of discerning her own heart. It is inappropriate to assume that my personal happiness, or lack thereof, has any bearing on my professional competence. She turned, her gaze sweeping over the board members, then settling on Thorne, a look of utter disdain in her eyes. Mr. Thorne, you have spent years attempting to undermine me. You have peddled rumors and manufactured baseless accusations, all in a desperate bid to seize control. You believe that exposing my personal life, that attempting to shame me, will somehow weaken my resolve or make me less effective. You are gravely mistaken. She turned back to the crowd, her voice softening slightly, but losing none of its power. Elena, 5 years ago, I lost the love of my life. I poured every ounce of my being into preserving Victor's legacy, into ensuring this company not only survived but thrived. I made sacrifices that most of you cannot even comprehend. I faced down predatory competitors, navigated global crises, and expanded.
This estate beyond what anyone thought possible, and I did it alone. Because I was strong, and I was indispensable. Her eyes found mine, and a profound tenderness filled them, a connection that spoke volumes without a single word. Then she looked back at the crowd. And now I find love again, a connection that brings joy, understanding, and a renewed sense of purpose into my life. And some of you believe this makes me weaker? I tell you, it makes me stronger. It makes me a more compassionate leader, a more resilient visionary. To suggest otherwise is not only an insult to me, but an insult to the very concept of human connection. The Volkov legacy has never been more stable, more profitable, more respected. My personal life has fueled that success, not hindered it. If you wish to question my leadership, question my results, question my balance sheets, question my strategic decisions. But do not for a second question my heart, because that, gentlemen, is the only thing that has kept me going through the darkest of times. And to those who choose to judge, I simply ask, would you deny a woman who has given everything to her work the simple human right to find happiness? The crowd was silent, stunned. Thorne stood frozen, his face ashen, his scheme utterly derailed by her audacity, by her raw, undeniable power. The journalist, looking utterly deflated, began to pack away his notepad. I stood there, holding her hand, my heart bursting with pride, with love, with an overwhelming sense of awe. She hadn't denied anything. She hadn't cowered. She had simply embraced it, leveraged her unassailable position, and turned the entire scandal on its head. She had fought for us, for our love, and she had won. And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that no matter what happened next, being with her was indeed worth everything. Scene end. Scene start. In T, Elena's private residence, night, 6 months later. The aftermath of the garden party was predictably a whirlwind. The story, or rather Elena's defiant response, made headlines for days. There were whispers, of course, and a few board members expressed their concerns, but Elena's performance had been too powerful, too compelling. Her indispensability to the Volkov legacy was undeniable. Mr. Thorne was swiftly and quietly reassigned to a satellite office in a distant country. Clara, my steadfast ally, was promoted to a more senior position, and Elena and we prevailed, but not without understanding the need for discretion. 6 months had passed.
The autumn leaves were turning golden again, a gentle reminder of the passage of time. Our relationship had deepened, evolving into something richer, more profound. We still maintained a professional distance during the day, a silent agreement to protect what we had. But the nights belonged to us. Our intimacy wasn't just physical, it was a profound merging of souls, a shared sanctuary against the world. And to those who choose to judge, I simply ask, would you deny a woman who has given everything to her work the simple human right to find happiness? The crowd was silent, stunned. Thorne stood frozen, his face ashen, his scheme utterly derailed by her audacity, by her raw, undeniable power. The journalist, looking utterly deflated, began to pack away his notepad. I stood there, holding her hand, my heart bursting with pride, with love, with an overwhelming sense of awe. She hadn't denied anything. She hadn't cowered. She had simply embraced it, leveraged her unassailable position, and turned the entire scandal on its head. She had fought for us, for our love, and she had won. And in that moment, I knew, with absolute certainty, that no matter what happened next, being with her was indeed worth everything. Scene end.
I was sitting on the floor of her living room, just like that night months ago, but this time her head was in my lap, her eyes closed, listening to the soft strains of a classical piece on the stereo. Her hair, still down, spread like a dark fan against my trousers. My fingers, now confident and familiar, stroked her cheek, tracing the delicate curve of her jaw. The city hummed outside, a distant lullaby. It was in these quiet moments that our love truly blossomed, in the shared silence, in the gentle rhythm of her breathing, in the subtle habits we'd developed. The way she'd reach for my hand under the table during a tense board meeting, a brief, reassuring squeeze. The way she'd leave a specific coffee mug on my desk in the mornings, knowing it was my favorite. The way her eyes would soften, just for me, when no one else was looking. That was a long day. 3 board meetings and a delegation from Tokyo. My brain feels like scrambled eggs. Smiling down at her, leaning in to brush a kiss against her forehead. You were magnificent. As always, you had them eating out of your hand.
And you, my intrepid junior estate manager, did an excellent job ensuring the catering was impeccable, as usual, even if you did steal a few of those mini quiches before they reached the VIP lounge.
Me? Never. Just quality control. She laughed, a low, throaty sound that warmed me from the inside out. She shifted, turning her head slightly, her gaze meeting mine, full of warmth and affection.
You know, Leo, I sometimes think back to that night, in my office, the faulty lamp, and your observation.
My heart did a familiar flip, remembering the fear, the recklessness, the undeniable pull.
The peak, and my foolish reply.
Her fingers reached up, tangling in my hair, tugging gently, her voice a low, teasing whisper.
Another peak, and you're fired.
My gaze fell to her lips, remembering the intensity of that moment, the raw hunger that it ignited between us, and I said, it might be worth it, to be honest.
Her eyes sparkled, brimming with playful mischief, her lips curving into a captivating smile.
And was it?
Was it worth it, Leo Maxwell? All the drama, the whispers, the risk to your promising career?
I leaned down, my lips brushing hers, the lingering touch of her skin against mine sending a familiar thrill through me. Her scent, her warmth enveloped me.
Every single second, Elena Volkov. Every single beautiful second. I wouldn't trade it for all the ambition in the world. Being with you, finding this humanity behind all the power and the cold elegance, it's the greatest reward I could ever ask.
4. She closed her eyes again as I kissed her, a deep, tender kiss that spoke of promises, of shared dreams, of a love that had defied expectations and broken every rule. The classical music played on, a soothing backdrop to our quiet, fierce devotion. The Volkov legacy continued to thrive, a testament to Elena's brilliance. But in the quiet sanctity of her private residence, away from the world's prying eyes, we were just Elena and Leo, two souls intertwined, finding solace and joy in a love that was, to us, immeasurably worth it all. Scene end.